What is up, guys? It's your boy Rick Kakis, and today we've got some brand spanking new Destiny 2 news, courtesy of the Bungie weekly update that just went live, revealing official information. And it is a monster update this week, so hey, make sure you're comfortable, go grab a snack, take a seat, and get ready for some crazy updates. And so, let's get started. Now, first things first, what's been going on this week for Destiny 2? Well, at the Tuesday weekly reset, the Past is Prologue event went live, where you can go and get these different tasks, aka quests from the Drifter. You do them and then you get a special bento token currency. Now you can take this currency and go and buy some pretty valuable items from Eris Morn. If you want to know like everything there is to know about this event, definitely check out my video on the subject linked right up above. But overall, it's a pretty underwhelming event if we're being honest. Like, it's nothing crazy, but it is a great chance for especially, new player accounts or more casual accounts to get some very rare items, resources, weapons and so on for not much effort. So definitely it is something worth taking advantage of. Now, aside from that, guys, yesterday, speaking of monster updates, Bungie dropped an absolutely massive PvP update. They are completely overhauling Trials of Osiris. You no longer need to go flawless to go to the lighthouse. The reward system is completely different. It's now based on win streaks rather than, again, like the all or nothing going flawless. And so definitely, guys, if you want to know everything there is about that massive PvP update, again, did another video covering it. It's linked right up above. But today, guys, we get into the brand new information within the TWAB. And first off, Bungie announces a new developer livestream for episode Heresy Act 1. It's going to take place on January 28th, so the upcoming Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, so I believe that's 1 hour after reset. And we're probably going to learn a lot of stuff about Heresy in this live stream. Of course, if you miss it, there will be a full recap video going live on this channel shortly after. Now, if you are able to make it, as you can see right here, everyone who watches the live stream for at least 15 minutes will get this, a very cool Scorned Oregon emblem. And there's another Twitch drop emblem available right now, Golden Hour, which you can see right here, and you get that for subscribing or gifting a sub to your favorite Destiny 2 streamer. And I'm going to try to be live over the weekend on Twitch as well, just letting you know. Link in the description. All right, now, after that, guys, again, Bungie really goes over the massive PvP update that we're not going to be going over in this video simply because it's fully covered in that separate PvP update video. But they then get into the content delivery plans for Heresy. So they say something we want to share today is that Heresy will have a weekly content and story delivery. We understand your concerns about our return to this approach, but we have learned a lot from the all-in format in Revenant. So in Heresy, we're striking a balance between everything dropping on day one of an act versus meaningful reasons to log in throughout the episode. To that end, we've made the vast majority of activities content available on the first day of the act, with said content evolving based on the weekly story. Additionally, each week will feature a seasonal challenge that rewards a new tier of seasonal weapon. Check out the livestream next week for the first look at this heretical arsenal. So, new tier, guys. A while back, Bungie teased concepts for something that was supposed to arrive in the Apollo Next Big Frontiers DLC, and as you can see right here, it's tiered weapons. So you have weapons tiered 1 to 5, with tier 5, I think, is showing off. It has masterworked everything. So if you can maybe earn that early in episode Heresy instead of, Bungie brought it out of Apollo into episode Heresy, that could be a really big deal if that's what they're talking about. Then they say, without stepping into spoiler territory, we can also tell you that Heresy won't rely on a fixed length for each act like the previous episode. For example, Act 2 will last 3 weeks instead of the standard 5 or 6. Additionally, all reprised weapons for the episode will be available at launch, while all of the second half of the episodic weapons will be available when Act 2 launches. Interesting. So, definitely Episode Revenant was not the best idea. Like, they just kind of made everything come out all at once, but clearly they hadn't planned for that, and it just didn't go over well. I do enjoy things being more front-loaded, but you do have to have reasons to come back every week. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. But after that, guys, we get into the weapons and armor updates for Heresy. So, a lot of buffs and nerfs here. And we're starting with exotic armor. So, for the Hunter, the sealed Ahamkara grasps, they've reworked with a weapon swapping focus to differentiate it from other Hunter reload exotics. Perk description now reads, powered melee and finisher final blows grant nightmare fuel, increasing handling and airborne effectiveness, while active, freshly drawn weapons deal additional damage and grant Nightmare Fuel on final blows. Gaining Nightmare Fuel reloads all holstered weapons. So you're gonna have to get that melee or finisher to start the chain, but then like you draw your weapon, you do bonus damage. Depending on how much bonus damage you actually do, these could be very good. Then you have the Gwizzin Vest. Right now, frankly, it sucks. I did a video showcasing a build with it when they buffed the absolute crap out of Spectral Blades. They gave it like 30% more damage against bosses and then like 55% more, 60% more damage against normal enemies. So it now progresses its super returns on super hits as well as kills before becoming invisible. So it's just going to be more easy to use. They've improved the maximum possible super energy gains per return while also increasing the amount of progress needed for maximum gains. It now emits a cloud of weakening smoke when you exit invisibility while nearby an enemy, and it works both in neutral and while in super. So this might be a pretty big deal, again, because Spectral Blades got a massive damage buff very recently. Then for Renewal Grasps, they've doubled the rate of Frost Armor gain while in the Enhanced Dust Field Grenade. Okay, that's pretty decent. For Foe Tracer, they've increased the bonus weapon damage duration from 10 to 15 seconds. For the Radiant Dance Machines, it's been kind of reworked. It improves airborne effectiveness and hipfire mobility range and accuracy for primary ammo weapons. Multi-kills with primary ammo weapons refund dodge energy. While dodge energy is full, multi-kills grant extra charges. Powerful combatants and guardians count as more than one kill. So you pair that with a good primary and that could be very good. Then you have the Relativism, the exotic class item for Spirit of Galanor specifically. They've reduced the maximum amount of energy refunded for Silk Strike and Golden Gun to 30%, down from 50%. Then for Relativism for the Spirit of Foe Tracer, it has inherited the changes made to the actual Foe Tracer, so it's going to last longer, so just better. Then for the Titan, guys, the Titan's Ramparts. It's been adjusted to account for its problematic dominance in PvP. So they've removed several downsides applied by the Assault Barricade to bring it in line with the base Towering Barricade behavior. So cumulatively, these changes result in a Towering Barricade you can shoot through with no other downsides, while Titans is equipped in PvE. So, increased barrier health from 400 to 500 no longer increases the barricade cooldown, no longer decreases barricade duration, but it's further increased damage dealt to Titans barricades by Guardians from 125% to 160%. The result is near identical effective barrier health in PvP, and it's about 2.5% less after these changes. Alright, so they basically just made it a lot better for PvE. Then for the Eternal Warrior, final blows with Fists of Havoc now grant extended super duration. Alright, probably still not going to use that. But then for Ursa Furiosa, blocking damage with Unbreakable now returns grenade energy instead of super energy. Yeah, that was pretty crazy. And grenade energy is returned at the end of Unbreakable and is scaled based on the amount of damage you blocked with it. Then for the Kepri's Horn, they say it's getting a glow up, so it now sends out 3 waves of flame instead of just 1. These waves no longer return towards the barricade, they only travel out once, and tracking has been enhanced, so they might seek a little bit like the Burning Maul super of the Titan, and combatants damaged by these waves are enveloped in a sunspot. Players are enveloped if they are defeated. Now requires a solar super to be equipped to create the flame waves from the barricade. So certainly causing sunspots is wild. Sunspots are incredibly powerful even in PvE, so maybe this will get the Khepris to see more play. Then for an insurmountable Skull Fort. So it now grants energy to arc melee abilities when hitting targets with any melee attack. The amount granted varies based on the melee used. And from the most energy granted to the least energy granted, we have powered melees, followed by non-glaive unpowered melees while knockout is active. And then you have unpowered melees, including glaives. So that's actually kind of a big deal. Your glaive melees will be refunding your arc melee abilities. That's pretty cool. Then we have Stoicism for Spirit of the Bear. It inherits the changes made to Ursa Furiosa, and Spirit of the Horn, it's inherited the changes made to Khepri's Horn. Again, guys, that's actually a pretty big deal. They do say on Thruster, however, it will now emit 4 waves as an X pattern. So again, you now can reliably create sunspots with the Prismatic Titan. That is a big deal. But next up, we have the Warlock. And first of all, we have Storm Dancer's Brace. So they've doubled the damage benefit per stack of Ascending Amplitude up to 20% per stack from 10% originally. It now also reduces the cost of Ionic Blink during Super by 50% and reduce the maximum amount of energy refunded to 30% down from 50%. So a bit of a nerf in terms of energy refund, but a big buff for everything else. Then the Geomag Stabilizers. So these have not seen a ton of play since their nerf, which removed the ability to run to recharge your super. So they've added a new perk. Sprinting while near max bolt charge will top it off. So it's back, baby. The Geomag Stabilizers are back. It starts at 6 stacks of bolt charge, and they've re-enabled the VFX where the boots spark while sprinting near max bolt charge, and they've increased the super energy gained from Ionic Traces to 7% from 2%. So bolt charge is the brand new arc keyword that's arriving in Heresy, and essentially what it is when you use your arc abilities, you're going to build up stacks of bolt charge, and when it reaches full stacks, you're going to emit like a lightning strike down on an enemy you use an ability on. But again, like, this is kind of a big deal. If you build into bolt charging, I mean, like, Geomag Stabilizers, when they had this effect before, they were crazy. So if you can reliably get bolt charge, these could be crazy once again. Then for the Secant Filaments and Spirit of the Filaments, it now gives class ability energy per kill while Devour is active. And then for Speaker's Sight, the healing turret no longer targets allies at full health, and allies need some damage done to their shields to be eligible targets. So this is a pretty big nerf, actually. It may seem kind of nice, like, oh, it won't waste its heals on full health allies, but the problem is that because it was constantly healing everyone around you, even yourself and allies when they were full health, it was constantly triggering Ember of Benevolence, which gives you insane ability cooldown reduction. So that's not going to happen anymore. You're going to get much less activations of Ember of Benevolence. I still think the Speaker Sight will be God tier, just not quite as good. Then for the Verity's Brow and Spirit of Verity, it now uses a meter to track death throws, so that new durations per tier at ×1 you have 8 seconds, ×2 7, ×3 6, ×4 5, ×5 you only have 4 seconds. When one tier's duration elapses, the buff will downgrade to the lower tier rather than expiring entirely. Guys, that's a huge deal. So you get up to ×5, it goes away, it goes down to ×4, and you have 5 seconds, and then it goes down to 6 seconds of ×3. So actually, this means that it is going to be really easy to keep up the Verity's Brow buff. And they also say the bonus grenade recharge per tier, ×1, 0.5% per second, ×2, 1% per second, ×3, 1.5, ×4, 2, and ×5, 2.5% per second. So again, Verity's Brow has a lot of potential, and especially now, just because it's going to be so much easier to keep active, it could be quite good. Then for Spirit of Verity, gain the same thing, but it provides 50% of the base of the Verity's Brow exotic, so not quite as effective on the exotic class item. Moving on from there, guys, for weaponry. So in terms of global changes to aim assistance, they say aiming at a target for a short time will prevent another target moving very quickly across your reticle from dragging your aim off it, controller only. So basically, you're aiming at someone would run by and it would literally like drag. There's so much like aim stickiness and it would drag your sights off of that initial target, and then you would like miss the guy you're actually trying to shoot at. Then for the weapon archetypes and subfamilies, for PvE damage tuning, guys, scout rifles plus 15% against minors, plus 30% against majors. For auto rifles, plus 10% versus minors majors. SMGs, plus 5% versus minors. And they say additionally, we increased the base magazine size in a previous update. Traced rifles, plus 20% more damage against minors. That's a big one. And linear fusion rifles, plus 10% against everybody. Kind of undoing the big linear fusion rifle nerf that came when they were so dominant. So again, linear fusion rifles might be back on the menu as well. Now for glaives, guys, they say it's been a historically niche weapon type, but the intent is that glaives become more agile and need to reload less often. So they're going to significantly increase aim assist, aim magnetism, and damage fall-off ranges across the board for glaives. They've improved the glaive projectile hit registration. They've increased the baseline effects at all stat values for handling speeds, so including shield ready and draw and stow speed, magazine size, projectile speed, reload speed. Those are all getting better. And final hit of the melee combo deals double damage. So this hit also inflicts much more flinch on PvE combatants. So pretty big buff to glaives right there, and if you have any sitting in the vault, it might be time to take them out for episode Heresy. Moving on from there, aggressive frame fusion rifles. So they say only one aggressive frame fusion rifle exists in the game. It's the Coriolis Force, issued back in Beyond Light, and we'd like to give the subfamily a bit more love to try to sell its unique charged spread shot gameplay with a complete rework. So the original fired its pellets all at once, so its recoil felt shotgun-like. With the rework, we wanted to stay true to the fusion rifle performance of controlling your recoil over the burst. So here is what is happening. Aggressive frame fusion rifles now fire 3 bursts of 4 pellets with increasingly wide spreads. They've increased the minimum damage when fully outside of the damage range fall off from 45% to 65%. They've increased the range fall off start by 4 meters relative to normal fusion rifles. They've increased the range fall off end by 3 meters relative to other fusion rifles. And they've increased damage versus minors and majors by 15% relative to normal fusion rifles. That is incredibly interesting, right? Like, hey, when we've had these new damage archetypes enter the game, a lot of them have been a very big deal. So now having those 3 shots, it's actually kind of reminding me of the exotic kinetic fusion rifle, the Bastion. It has those like burst of 3 different shots. So yeah, these could actually end up being very good if the damage is there, guys. So for support frame auto rifles, again, another big deal introduction of a new archetype here. They say currently their range stat is not especially desirable because their unique projectile properties. So essentially, range now increases how far away you can heal another Guardian. So there you go, guys. Your range stat is going to matter on support frames moving forward. Then for rocket-assisted frame sidearms, oh boy, they say they're insane. So here's what's happening. They've reduced PvE detonation damage by 45%. However, they've increased PvE impact damage by 100%. They've reduced the aim assist fall off and maximum distance by 8 meters. They've reduced the magnetism fall off and maximum distance by 8 meters. They've reduced damage by 30% versus bosses, vehicles, and mini boss targets. And the buried bloodlines body shot damage is unaffected. Critical hit damage is buffed by 8%, so Buried Bloodline's looking pretty hot right now. The range stat was vestigial on the weapon subfamily, so we removed it. Range Masterworks and Enhanced Intrinsics will be replaced with something more appropriate. So, really interesting change. They're going to actually hit harder, but they're going to be much worse against damaging multiple enemies at the same time. So, very interesting change here. Moving on from there, guys, we have our next category, exotic weapons. So for the Lorentz Driver, picking up a bounty tag now grants 1 ammo to the mag. Triggering whatever site by picking up a bounty tag adds 6 ammo to the mag the first time you trigger it, and it returns to adding 1 ammo per tag on extensions while the buff remains active. Next up, we have the Delicate Tomb. They've increased the chance to make an ionic trace from minor combatants from 4% to 10%. They've increased the PvE damage bonus of the Tempest Cascade shot from 30% to 100%, massive boost. And they've removed the timer from Tempest Cascade, lasts until fired. Okay, so that's a big buff to the Delicate Tomb. Remember, guys, like, based on what I'm seeing here and based on all the changes Bungie made to Arc, it seems like Arc will be a featured element next season. So stuff like the Delicate Tomb, it's probably going to be combined with a bunch of Arc seasonal artifact perks, which is going to make it even better. Speaking of Arc weapons, the next one is the Darcy. So this is a heavy sniper rifle added back in vanilla Destiny 2, and it has struggled to see play ever since they changed up the weapon system, and it remained a heavy sniper rifle. So they added a new catalyst perk, networked targeting. So hits with personal assistant active grant you and nearby allies improved overall weapon performance and precision damage with non-exotic sniper rifles, improves recoil, flinch, target acquisition, handling, and precision damage, stacks up to 5 times. The Darcy also gets the buff itself, and Darcy user also gets plus 15% damage after granting 5 stacks to a teammate. Guys, this is huge. This is basically Wolfpack rounds, but for sniper rifles. Just like how the Galahorn will buff all non-exotic rocket launchers, the Darcy is now going to be buffing all non-exotic sniper rifles and itself, actually. So this could be huge. Like, this actually unironically changes everything in terms of sniper rifle DPS. You're now going to want one Darcy user and everyone else using sniper rifles if this damage is good enough. Like, this really could make a big difference. Unfortunately, like, the bad part is that it doesn't buff Whisper of the Worm, which is currently like one of the better PvE sniper rifles. But again, if the damage is there, this could be super saucy. Again, you could use a different weapon type. You could have, honestly, someone using a Galahorn and then a sniper rifle, and then you could use rockets, and then when everyone is out of rockets, have one person on Darcy. They, have the Darcy, and everyone else swaps to their special sniper rifle, and then you switch to sniper DPS, getting buffed by the Darcy. Again, like, this could actually be a huge change to all DPS phases in the game where you could use sniper rifles. But we've got to move on to the Edge of Action, Edge of Concurrence, and Edge of Intent. So for all of the class exotic glaives, Special Shot is no longer tied to glaive energy. It's now triggered on 6 weapon hits to allow the special reload. So increments of both shots and melee hits. And for the Edge of Concurrence, effects of jolting feedback trait added to the intrinsic perk. Okay. Edge of Action, effects of destabilizing rounds trait added to the intrinsic perk. And then the Edge of Intent, effects of incandescent added to the intrinsic perk, added cure pulse to a special shot impact, and the healing turret no longer targets allies at full health. So kind of the same thing. That is actually a huge deal. So you don't have to build up specific energy on shots. Potentially you can just get melee hits. You can use it only to melee, especially for the Edge of Intent healing you. Like, just go up, melee, you start to get low, special shot, heal turret yourself, and then just go back to meleeing. Could be really, really good. Then for Centrifuge, they've increased the mag size to 45. Then for the Dead Messenger, the Hard Light, and the Borealis. So they say we're revitalizing the exotic perk, the Fundamentals, to modernize it a bit. It now has a new effect, granting 30% damage buff, 10% in PvP, to this weapon for 10 seconds when you apply or receive an elemental keyword that matches the currently selected damage type of the weapon. So you switch it to solar, you get radiant, and then you get a 30% damage buff. And it no longer grants different stats based on the current element. And for the Borealis only, however, they've increased stability by 20 and aim assist by 10 to permanently grant it the void element bonus that it will no longer have access to, since the Borealis is a sleeper pick in PvP. This bonus was selected over Arc since there are more ways to gain handling. Then for the Telesto, oh boy, guys, something's gonna be broken next season because of this. For the Harbinger's Pulse, now only refills Telesto's ammo from reserves instead of Telesto and your kinetic slot weapon. Now triggers with any void final blow, and final blow requirements increased from 2 to 3. However, Telesto final blows count double. In other words, it will trigger from 2 Telesto final blows, 1 Telesto final blow plus 1 other void final blow, or 3 other void final blows, and the multi-kill timer increased from 2 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Then for the Catalyst, the new perk is Harbinger Seethe. So after 3 activations of Harbinger's Pulse, special reload the weapon to cause a rain of Telesto projectiles on your next direct hit. Yeah, this is going to absolutely break something in the game, oh my goodness. Then for the Vex Caliber. So, triggering Perpetual Loophole by scoring a melee hit while your Overshield is active now fills your glaive energy to full, and they've slightly increased the Void Overshield trickle-on rate to nearby allies and yourself while guarding. They've increased the potency of the Vex Caliber's secret innate advantages against the Vex, and Vex Caliber's secret damage bonus when striking with its projectiles against certain enemy factions, so the Vex, has been increased from 10% to 25% to match the Wish Ender and the Malfeasance, and the Vex Caliber now briefly disorients non-boss Vex with its melee attack. So if we have some Vex-themed stuff next season, whip out the Vex Caliber. Then for the Wardcliff Coil, guys, it's randomly so good against certain bosses, but other than that, it sees like no play. So, new intrinsic effect grants 1 stack of bolt charge to all nearby allies for every 2 rockets fired, 4 stacks per trigger pull. That's actually a decent way to trigger bolt charge, like, to be honest. Then for the Queen Breaker. So, players can special reload at any time to swap between scopes. Marksman Sights retains the previous behavior of firing a single shot that chains to nearby targets and blinds them. The range of the chain has increased from 8 meters to 10 meters to make chaining easier. Combat Sights now alters the weapon to fire a 3-round burst at a charge time of 533. Sustained damage on a target decreases the charge time of the weapon down to 300 charge time with no loss to damage. Useful for quickly dealing damage to bosses or other high health targets. That sounds actually decent. And lastly, the scope that you select in the inspection screen will determine which scope is active by default when spawning into an activity. Then for the Colony. So previously they made a change where the insectoid robots would spawn more when they get kills. So they've increased the detonation damage by 40%. This puts its damage per shot a little above legendary drum grenade launchers. And they've increased the number of bots spawned by 1 for all enemy tiers except players. So that's actually a really big deal. Like, if this just at a base level is doing more damage than your normal heavy grenade launcher that's legendary, but it's also insane at clearing ads because of these robots, maybe it'll see play. The problem is that once you introduce stuff like bait and switch, the legendary grenade launchers will start to pull ahead in terms of DPS. Anyways, for the Quicksilver Storm, they've reduced the shots required to trigger a rocket by 17%, not bad. The Legend of Acreus, they've reduced the spread angle by 33%, and they've increased the maximum projectile range from 12 to 18 meters. Well, if you haven't picked up the Legend of Acreus Catalyst that Xur randomly sells from time to time, make sure you do that because, again, the Legend of Acreus smacks incredibly hard. Then for the fourth Horseman, they've reduced the rate of fire slightly to give more control over wasting shots and loads ammo from reserves to the magazine per kill. Super interesting change there too. For the Lord of Wolves, it terrorized PvP and got a huge nerf, so now they've increased the range and reduced the base damage. They've removed the accuracy penalties from the standard fire mode. Release the Wolves now triggers on hip fire instead of special reload. Super interesting. It fires full auto, greatly increased damage and rate of fire, and reduced accuracy and range. So now it's like aim down sights to get the tightened up spread, and then hip fire to get the super fast high damaging spread, similar to the Choir of One, Bungie says. And for the Catalyst, reload speed and stability boosts are now built in. When Release the Wolves is active, dealing damage to targets scorches them, and when aim down sights, defeating targets spreads Scorch to nearby combatants. Then for the Cloud Strike, wow, we have so many things buffed here. So they've added behavior to the Stormbringer perk. Rapid precision hits create a lightning storm at the point of impact and grants a stack of bolt charge. And for the Mortal Polarity perk, precision final blows generate a lightning bolt at the target's location and grants a moderate amount of bolt charges. So this should just be better. So Cloud Strike was already one of the best sniper rifles in terms of DPS in the entire game, but now you're also getting that bolt charge extra lightning bolt that you have the potential to spawn. So that's just crazy. So Thunderlord as well. They added behavior to the Reign of Havoc perk. Final blows with this weapon generate lightning strikes from above. Lightning strikes grant a stack of bolt charge strong against overload champions. So again, like, this should just be extra DPS, I would imagine, right? And not to mention, every stack of bolt charge is a chunk of melee energy too. So the Thunderlord just became one of the best, ways to get your melee back in the entire game. Like, that's crazy. Then for weapon perks, guys, we're getting through it. So for destabilizing rounds, it now grants volatile rounds for 2 seconds if any targets are hit by the volatile burst of the initial final blow. Reduced the internal cooldown from 4 seconds down to 1.5 seconds. Massive buff for destabilizing rounds. Then with Full Court, it now scales the detonation and burn damage of area denial grenade launchers. So expect some new area denials with Full Court next season. Then you have Ambitious Assassin, removed both multi-kill and reload timers. So it's going to be easier to trigger. Then with Flash Counter, they've reworked it to read taking damage after guarding amidst a disorienting blast. It no longer requires a timed input or melee to trigger, and it deals moderate damage in a cone in front of you, disorienting combatants. Now, removing the weaken and replacing it with disorienting, we'll have to wait and see. Moving on from there, guys, they say, draw, oh coward. Essentially, our PvP-focused article sheds some light on the new weapons coming to, especially Trials and PvP and competitive, but they're going over some more right here, guys. So, the new Nightfall weapons in episode Heresy are going to be, first of all, the Lotus Eater, a void rocket-assisted sidearm. The left column has Strategist, Feeding Frenzy, Well-Rounded, Shoot to Loot, Beacon Rounds, and Reconstruction. Then the fourth column, One for All, a redacted perk, High Ground, Reverberation, Frenzy, Adrenaline Junkie. Honestly, doesn't seem that crazy insane to me. I'd like to see what that redacted perk is. Kind of sad we don't see any like void perks. Like, where is the destabilizing rounds? I would kind of like to see that on a rocket assisted side, I'm not gonna lie. Then we have the Palindrome. Very interesting. It's an arc adaptive hand cannon, so they changed the element from void to arc. I hate this, guys. I hate this so much because there's like actually not many good void 140 hand cannons in the entire game. If this would have had explosive payload, which it of course it does, it would have been only the second of void 140 with explosive in the entire game. That sucks, man. Anyways, it has closing time, elemental capacitor, explosive payload in the left, which is a huge deal, a redacted perk, outlaw, and then To the Pain. And then the right column, Magnificent Howl, Snapshot Sights, Master of Arms, actually, Opening Shot, and Desperate Measures. Yeah, anything with explosive payload in the left column is going to be one of the top tier hand cannons for PvE in the entire game. Like, it's so good. Then for Vanguard Ops, guys, we have the Cynosure, a Strand aggressive rocket launcher. In the left column, Reconstruction, Envious Arsenal, Slice, Demolitionist, Field Prep, Tracking Module, Sympathetic Arsenal, Impulse Amplifier, Ambitious Assassin, Discord, Danger Zone, Overflow. And then in the right column, Chain Reaction, Explosive Light, a new perk, Bipod, Cluster Bomb, Quick Draw, Lasting Impression, Adrenaline Junkie, Reverberation, Desperate Measures, High Ground, and Hatchling. So the big standout here is Discord. I believe this is the first time we're ever seeing it on a rocket launcher, and it was actually recently buffed to refund ammo on kills when it's active. So that means you get kills with some other weapons to activate it, and then you're gonna have a rocket launcher that should, in theory, refund itself after every single kill. So you could just blast through an entire lost sector, for example, with infinite rocket launcher ammo, potentially. Like, that could be crazy. Then for the Gambit weapon, we have the Backfang and Arc Rapid Fire Glaive. So left column, Impulse Amplifier, Beacon Rounds, a new perk, Grave Robber, which is always good on glaives, Immovable Object, Tilting at Windmills, Shot Swap, Steady Hands, Replenishing Aegis, Field Prep, Lead from Gold, Mulligan. In the right column, a new perk, Volt Shot, Swashbuckler, Surrounded, Unrelenting, Wellspring, Vorpal Weapon, Unstoppable Force, Close to Melee, Desperate Measures, Adagio, and Adrenaline Junkie. And then the Crucible weapon, the Joxer's Longsword, which is a Avoid Heavy Burst Pulse Rifle. Left column, Closing Time, Demo, Dragonfly, Killing Wind, Gutshot Straight, Lone Wolf, Pugilist, Enlightened Action, Rewind Rounds, Repulsor, Brace, Strategist, and Shoot to Loot. Right column, Adrenaline Junkie, Desperado, Desperate Measures, Destabilizing Rounds, Withering Gaze, Headseeker, High Impact Reserves, Under Pressure, One for All, Swashbuckler, New Perk, Zen Moment. So definitely actually some pretty cool weapons there. Then more weapons leaving soon, guys, to make room for these weapons. Nightfall. You're losing the Undercurrent Grenade Launcher. The last week to get it is going to be next week. Importantly, guys, again, like the Undercurrent, it can get Volt Shot and stuff, like, because of arc weapons being boosted to the moon so much, next season likely might be worth going after. Then for Trials, you have the Prophet. Its last week is the week of the 28th. Then the Reese Walker, last week is now, and the Lethal Abundance last week is now, guys. Iron Banner is currently ongoing. Then we have a couple of things about the Game to Give 2025 charity. You can see the information right here, guys. And there's actually a ton of different incentive tiers involved with this charity. And of course, all that information is going to be linked in the TWAB, which is linked in the description of this video. We also have the Los Angeles Wildfires charity as well, where you can buy a shirt, you get this emblem to support that cause. We have another Bungie rewards thing right here, guys, and more emblems for your creations for Movie of the Week and stuff like that. There's going to be some new emblems there. And there you have it. Oh my goodness. What an absolutely massive update. So many buffs and nerfs. And honestly, almost all buffs. Like, not as many nerfs for sure. Some huge reworks. Darcy, I'm really excited about. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. Guys, that's it for the video. Hope you enjoyed and found this informative. If you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. If you want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That is linked in the description down below. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.